The Gemara just spoke about the two opinions of when twilight is, Bein Hashmashos. And we had the opinion of Rabbi Yehuda, who was the common view, which is that there is a lengthy time of twilight. It's in between sunset and when when officially night begins, when stars come out, and during that time period, Rabbi Yehuda holds is considered a questionable period, and therefore that would be not a time for a Kohen to go to mikvah, because it might be night already, and a Kohen would need to go to the mikvah before evening. So according to Rabbi Yehuda, if a Kohen was impure, he would have to go to mikvah before the twilight period, before sunset. Rabbi Yossi is of the opinion that twilight is a very short period of time, and it's right before the stars come out. It's really a moment, and that's the period that is questionable. But before that, it is definitely day. And Rabbi Meir follows his view. Rabbi Meir follows Rabbi Yossi's view, and therefore Rabbi Meir held that the Kohanim could go to mikvah much later. And of course, the Kohanim would go to mikvah as late as they were allowed to. So any Kohanim that followed, Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Yossi's view, they would go to mikvah later after sunset. And as long as it was finished, their dunk was finished before the twilight period, which is a few moments or a moment before the stars come out, they were fine. They would just wait till the stars come out afterwards, and their tumah would be finished. It would be over, and they would be allowed to eat truma. So that is the where we're up to, and we're on the bottom of the page, and we're just going to repeat the statement of Rabbi Yossi, the Amar Rabbi Yossi, the bottom line. Rabbi Yossi says, "Bein hashmashos, twilight, keheref ayin." It's like the blink of an eye. Ze nichnas, b'ze yotzei. This enters, and this leaves, which means the night enters and the day leaves. Ve'i efshar la'amod olav, and it's impossible to to even have a definite time of when it is. It's such a short time, you wouldn't be able to even stand on it. So that's the literal translation. You wouldn't be able to stand on that time. It's really a moment, and that is the answer that the Gemara gave to about going to the mikvah. According to Reb Meir, how did the Kohanim go to mikvah at such a late time? And the answer was that they would go to mikvah because although people do go to sleep already at that time, but it's still considered day because Rabbi Meir follows Rabbi Yossi, and the day goes on much later than we follow, which would be more, we would follow the sunset time, and they would follow the Rabbi Yossi's opinion that the day continues all the way until just before the stars come out. And now the Gemara says that we should have two questions. There should be two things that are bothering us now. And the Gemara is going to try to reconcile these two big problems. There's major contradictions. And if we look at that sheet that I emailed out, let me see if I can pull it up here. I wasn't planning on it.
Are you there, Rabbi?
I'm here. I'm just sharing the screen. For those that have a computer, you'll be able to see this right now. Okay, so let's look at the different opinions. Mainly, we're looking for Rabbi Meir and Rabbi Eliezer. So let's start with the Mishnah. We have Rabbi Eliezer, who says when the stars come out. That's on the top of this paper. Can everyone see the paper? Everyone see this this screen, the sheet that I'm showing? Yeah? Okay. So we have Rabbi Eliezer says when stars come out. And then if we look at Brisa 3, what does Rabbi Eliezer say? He says sunset, when day is sanctified because of doubt. In other words, when Shabbos comes in because we're not sure, so he goes by sunset. So what does Rabbi Eliezer hold? Does he hold you can start saying Shema when the stars come out? Or does Rabbi Eliezer hold when the sunset? We have two places where Rabbi Eliezer says two opposite laws. So that's one contradiction. And the other contradiction is Rabbi Meir. If you look at Brisa 2, what does Rabbi Meir say? Rabbi Meir says when regular people eat their Friday night meal. That was Brisa 2. And then in Brisa 3, Rabbi Meir says when Koyanim dunk in the mikvah. So these two brisas, these two opinions are contradictory, because we know that the people eat their meal on Friday night is later than the time of the kohen, meaning it's later than the it's later than when the when the kohanim dunk in the mikvah, and I'm sorry, and it's later than when the kohanim eat their truma, and here we're saying that when they dunk, which is before the stars come out. So Reb Meir in Brisa 2 says after the stars come out. Reb Meir in Brisa 3 says before the stars come out. So the Gemara asked this question, the two questions. So now let's go back to our Gemaras. I'm going to remove the share screen. Okay, so let's go to the top of the page. We're now on page 3, side A. Kasha de Reb Meir ad Reb Meir. We have a question, Reb Meir on Reb Meir. That means one place Reb Meir said one thing, and the other place Reb Meir said a different thing. So we have this contradiction. So the Gemara answers very simply, Trei Tanoi aliba de Reb Meir. There are two Tanoim that mentioned what they understood from Reb Meir, and they argue. In other words, Reb Meir said one of these things, but the Tanoim, one of them thought they understood from Reb Meir one thing, and one thought they heard from Reb Meir the other thing. And therefore, we have two statements of Reb Meir. It's not that Reb Meir said a contradiction. It's these two rabbis that were repeating from Reb Meir, and one obviously said one thing that Reb Meir said, thought that Reb Meir said this, and the other thought that Reb Meir said that. And either he totally made a mistake, or he maybe heard it from someone else and it wasn't Reb Meir. But whatever it is, that's how it's possible that we have two opinions of Reb Meir. And then the Gemara says, what about Rabbi Eliezer? Kasha de Rabbi Eliezer ad Rabbi Eliezer. We have a contradiction of Rabbi Eliezer on Rabbi Eliezer, because one place he said one thing, the other place he said a different thing. So the Gemara answers, Trei Tanoi aliba de Rabbi Eliezer. There are two Tanoim that are going according to Rabbi Eliezer, and they're repeating from Rabbi Eliezer, and obviously one of them, either heard him wrong or was repeating really from someone else and made a mistake. But basically, these two rabbis quoted Rabbi Eliezer, and one of them quoted this thing, and one of them quoted something else, and that's why we have two statements from Rabbi Eliezer that contradict themselves. But that's not the only answer the Gemara gives. The Gemara says there really is another answer, and we all should possibly remember this, because I did touch upon this, that if you look in the original Mishnah that we are studying in this, in this tractate, the first Mishnah. So if you turn back and look at that first line, the first 2-3 lines, it says, "Me'emasai kairin shema bi'arvin." When do we recite the Shema in the evening? From the time that the Kohanim enter to eat their truma until the end of the first watching. These are the words of Rabbi Eliezer. Now, there's two ways to read that. Did Rabbi Eliezer say the whole sentence, or did he only say the second half of the sentence? It could be that Rabbi Eliezer said the entire thing, that when is the original, the earliest time you could say Shema, when the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. When's the latest time? When the end of the first watching, which is 4 hours. It could be he said both. But there is another way to read it. When is the earliest time to say Shema? The Mishnah says, without giving a name, it says anonymously, at the time the Kohanim enter to eat their truma. That's the earliest time for Shema. Ad, until when is the latest time that you could say Shema? And here the Mishnah has 3 opinions. Seifar Shema Rishayna Div Rabbi Eliezer. Rabbi Eliezer says the end of the first watching, 4 hours. The Chachamim ad chatzos. The Chachamim say until chatzos. Rabbi Gamliel says until dawn. So you have these opinions. They're arguing and they're only discussing the end time, but not the beginning time. So that's another way to read the Mishnah. So now our Gemara, when we were finding a contradiction of Rabbi Eliezer on Rabbi Eliezer, we said one place Rabbi Eliezer says one thing, one place it says the other thing. We were assuming that the entire first sentence of the Mishnah is Rabbi Eliezer, and that's why we had a contradiction. But if you say Rabbi Eliezer was only talking about the second half of the statement, and the first half is anonymous, so then it's not a contradiction, Rabbi Eliezer on Rabbi Eliezer. It is an anonymous statement in the Mishnah, and Rabbi Eliezer spoke in the Brisa, so it's not a contradiction. And that's really how the Gemara concludes. And let me read it. It's an abbreviation here. It's we're on the 3rd line of the Gemara. It says "V'i bayis ema," and if you want, say. If you'd like, you can answer another answer. Not that there's 2 rabbis quoting Rabbi Eliezer, but you could answer another answer. Reisha, the beginning of the Mishnah, lav Rabbi Eliezer. The beginning of the Mishnah is not Rabbi Eliezer, and Rabbi Eliezer was only talking about the final time of Shema, and that is where we had a debate between Rabbi Eliezer and the rabbis and Rabbi Gamliel, but the beginning time they did not have a discussion about, and Rabbi Eliezer was not even talking about that.